we are ranking number one on major keywords, but they are ranking on very different keywords and still making a lot of sales. And those keywords are in a very different, category. That
demand is always a really, really difficult one because you've got all of these moving parts. So we tend to look at, say we have a calendar and it says, here
A/B testing that makes you, allows you to figure out which part of, product, which part of your Amazon listing needs to be worked on, or which part of your Amazon listing can be made better. But is there anything else that can help you?
What I do when I talk to sellers is trying to make them understand what's their market. Because most sellers you speak to say, what's the market for you? What's your market
2017 or 2018, you would have asked me, I would have said that, make your product as digital as possible. That's what I would have said. But now in 2025, I think we miss the old. The
fact is, it is customers ordering product, and customers are very unpredictable in the way that they react. But we as marketeers or sellers or whatever we are, do our best to track.
Final question would be, how do you make your brand rock solid for coming years? Because for a seller, that's the most important thing.
It was lots of factors that sometimes you don't think about. Multiple products, growing market, all of this kind of stuff. That was just interesting that people were just
So at the same time, I think the best way to, because I have seen these things a lot where, Amazon just one day was like, okay, you have some brand infringement, or, we are going to give this patent to this person or something like that. So there are two sides of this story as well. Like sometimes what happens is that even if you have a patent, you have a lot of copycats coming into the market and you cannot do anything about it. You keep reporting them, obviously, but then they keep eating your share. That's one thing. And then the other thing is sometimes Amazon is like, they are so strict that they would just, give monopoly to one person in the category or one brand in the category, and then that category goes away for, because you cannot enter the category without,
I think a lot I see a lot when you see the post, Amazon's shut down my business. Do you not realize that how much sales they're losing because I'm not selling? And what they don't realize is that there's a fixed demand on Amazon, and that demand gets eaten up by the number of sellers actively selling. So if you go away, someone else will get those sales. Amazon doesn't lose anything. They can shut down billion-dollar sellers, and it makes no difference to their revenue because other sellers will just step in and fill the gap, and that's what's frightening about it, because you're so disposable in that respect. So many sellers can just be, we don't want you anymore, and the demand's always there, and the demand will always be met. And it's Black Friday, early Black Friday today, so I took advantage of a couple of early sales. I got myself a couple of bargains earlier this morning.
Nice. Yeah, Black Friday is, as a customer, it's very, it's very good, to be honest. Like, you get so many deals and stuff like that. I actually look forward to, these kinds of promotions and deals. And sometimes I'm calculating as well, like as a, I'm looking at it. Okay, so they are giving 30% off. So that means that they have enough margin. So, maybe they could give me more. So what's the biggest purchase that you have made on Amazon, like inside Amazon? Yeah.
What do you mean? Oh, blimey. Bought some furniture, which was a few £100s, but not major purchases like that. I mean, they do sell cars and things like that, don't they? I think they even sell houses somewhere. No, I'm not. We tend to be very active on Amazon as a buyer, but as a seller, Christ, I don't know. Most of my products as a seller were quite small. We had beauty products, we had pet products, We had office products, so nothing really major.
Yeah,
But
makes sense.
yeah, so it was all sort of small and many and high volume. I was always chasing repeat buy. So my products, my very first brand was a pet brand, pet shampoos and ear cleaners and things, and I just wanted that repeat buy. And then I went into, with a friend, women's beauty products, and again it was those face creams and face moisturizers that you want those repeat buys for, because it's so much easier to sell the same product 12 times to a customer rather than 12 customers, 12
Yeah,
separate customers. We'll probably get into some of that on the podcast, but it is quite a challenge sometimes if every customer has to be new. But that's what I was always chasing, those repeat buys. But then the market got very saturated, and
yeah,
it became much harder, and also the some of the activities that were going on, less so now, was quite ruthless and quite nasty. But I stepped
yeah,
away from the supplement market and the beauty products because it got quite cutthroat, and I didn't really want to be part of it.
yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it's It at one point, it's because one part of my brain says that the demand is always there. If you want to make a market share, it's always there. But at the same time, how much effort do you want to put in for one simple brand? That's the question. And because the same amount of effort can be put in something else, and can generate a lot of more profit or a lot more sales.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of good sellers make a lot of money just by taking a little bit for a lot of products. Now, obviously, that's a lot more work to build a big, but if you have 100 products doing a few $100s a month and you're taking, a small margin on each, that can actually add up quite significantly to some really, really tidy profits, rather than the sellers that rely on one or two products. I was answering a question. Where was it? I think it was on Reddit the other day. Someone was asking about exiting their business, and I was answering the question. They were asking, what defines value for a business? And it was, it got me thinking. It was not relying on that one core product. It was having a nice portfolio of products. It was selling across multiple marketplaces, selling off Amazon, selling on Amazon. It was lots of factors that sometimes you don't think about.
Yeah.
Multiple products, growing market, all of this kind of stuff. That was just interesting that people were just, what drives value? I mean, I think we got 2.5, I think it was 2.5 or 3 times net on our, when we sold our second brand. But we could have got significantly more had we sold on 4 or 5 Amazon marketplaces, or had a good, decent Shopify site as well, or had a larger portfolio of products. So, that's kind of something to think about if you're building to exit, which a lot of people are these days.
Yeah. Yeah, building to exit is also, very important as well. I think, but so I think first two should be your building for exits, and then third one you should, just build to hold or something that you know, something like that. Because first two you can, start with smaller products and stuff like that, and exit them while you still can, and then third one you really put in the effort, and you make sure.
Yeah.
I think it's different for everybody, because a lot of people also, Mark, again, I think it's a question as old as time, and the question is, how do you determine if you are good businessman or not, because I still think it's a very natural thing that comes to people, the business acumen and stuff.
Yes, I mean, it's a difficult one because you have to be. One of the things I always found difficult was wearing so many hats, and in a business, you have to be good with numbers, but also good with people and good with sales and good creatively. And traditionally, those roles don't normally fit in one person.
Yeah.
And, we tend to steer in one way or the other. And one of the things that I found I was really successful outside of Amazon was because we grow quite quickly, and therefore we could allocate people to those roles where they were better than me. It got to the point where everyone in the business was better than me at what they did. Whereas
Right.
in Amazon, you often find that the vast majority of people running Amazon businesses are solo entrepreneurs, and
Yeah.
therefore they get this imposter syndrome because they're failing in certain areas. And the reality, of course, is that they're not. It's just that they are better at some things than others. Being a
Yeah.
good business people, what does that mean? Making lots of money? Saving the planet? I don't know what that means. It's like I'm very, very good with numbers. And I'm very good at analyzing things and making sense of that sort of stuff. But you give me something to design,
Yeah.
I'm pretty terrible.
Yep. Yeah. Makes sense.
And I've always had to outsource that bit. And the same with other people who are brilliant at creativity, but you show them a spreadsheet and they run screaming.
Yeah.
And but as a solo entrepreneur, you're forced to do all of it to a certain level of competency.
Yeah.
And if you don't, people like me come along and say, why are you not tracking this number? Why are you not
Yeah.
tracking that number? And all that kind of stuff. And they're like, well, I don't know how to.
Yeah. That's
So
good.
I think everyone should have, if they can afford, some support in the areas that they're weak at. If it's creativity, then outsource that. If it's your financials, then outsource that to someone else.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So, Mark, like when we were talking last time, if you remember, we were talking about the cash flow and stuff like that. But then there's another thing that comes along, and that's a very important thing that I have been actually, I have having one of my clients, talk about this a lot, and that is the cost of holding inventory, and the having inventory, and then how to properly make sure that whatever inventory you have, you don't, it doesn't become, it doesn't cannibalize you, that
What do you
kind of thing.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the metrics that I think that people should monitor and they don't is stock turnover.
Yeah.
So it's one of the big ones that's sort of misunderstood, and think, well, I'll put my stock in FBA, therefore I don't have to worry about it. But if you take, as a good example, if you was to have, say, I don't know, two products each doing $10,000 of sales, and they both obviously sell the same number of units, they're similar products. But if you hold the value of $10,000 of stock in your FBA warehouse of product A, and the same product B, you've got $20,000 of stock in your warehouse. If you're selling $10,000 of product a month, you're turning over that stock 12 times with product A, but you're only
Yeah.
turning over that stock 6 times with product B. Therefore, your stock turnover is twice as much. And therefore, you can simply say product A converts your stock to cash twice as fast. And therefore, you've got, with product B, if that was your product, you've got $10,000 of stock sat in that warehouse that you can't turn into new products, advertising, staff costs, whatever, to improve your product. And a lot of sellers panic. Oh, I've got to have lots of stock in Amazon because I don't want to run out of stock. Yeah, get that. But you've got to understand, are you being too conservative? And are you not thinking about how quickly that top stock turns into cash?
Yeah.
I mean, true stock turnover, it actually calculates cost of goods, but for the simplicity for most sellers, it's just simply look at it. How quickly does that dollar of stock turn into real numbers, real cash in my bank account? And if you're running low on cash flow, look at your stock.
Yeah.
A lot of sellers, particularly if they stock from overseas, you've got some in a 3PL, you've got some in Amazon, you've got some on a boat from wherever, you've got some on deposit, and it's actually quite difficult to track all of that.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest part. Like whenever somebody asks me this, I'm like, first start with the, sourcing and make sure that, you track it down properly, because if you make a really great product and it sells out fast, then you are out of stock and then you have to order it. So you make sure that you order it while it's coming in, so that, the next batch is started up and stuff like that. But that's for the new sellers. For old sellers, I think, yeah, they learn from their mistakes, I think.
Yeah, they do. I mean, we track it in simple dashboards where we try, and it's not always perfect, but you try and track, stock demand is always a really, really difficult one, because you've got all of these moving parts. So we tend to look at, say we have a calendar and it says, here are all the sales, unit sales for the year. And then here are the expected increases or declines in sales because of seasonality, because it's Q4, because it's Mother's Day. And then we also have lead times also on this dashboard. It's going to take us 6 weeks to get it from wherever, plus it's going to take us 3 weeks to get it from the 3PL into Amazon. So you have all of these metrics that you look at and you say, right, okay, bottom line is I'm going to run out of stock on day Y, therefore I need to order at some point in the future. And you're right, a lot of sellers don't track it at that really, really basic level. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's just a simple 5 or 6 column spreadsheet that says, I need to order on this day or else it's going to go horribly wrong. And if you factor in, importantly, those increases or decreases in expected demand as best you can. I know Q4 is coming up and I sell toys, therefore I'm going to expect a massive increase in demand. Then you can avoid the worst of it. We all run out of stock. We've all run out of stock multiple times, but you try your best to avoid it.
And you're right that this cash flow management is very important, and especially it starts from the supply chain, because most of the money is tied up there, most until the inventory sells out. And it's a problematic process if it's slower. It's a problematic process if it's faster. So in both ways, you are kind of you are messed up, because if you sell fast, for example, if some seasonality happens, or for example, let's just say you go viral or something like that, you need to order it a lot, because now the customer is waiting for it. And God forbid if you're doing FBM and they order a lot more than you had planned for, then the Amazon keeps asking you for those shipment, have you shipped it out yet or not? So that becomes a very problematic thing as well.
It is. Sometimes it's nice problems to have if it's suddenly gone viral or whatever you say, but the fact is, it is customers ordering product, and customers are very unpredictable in the way that they react. But we as marketeers or sellers or whatever we are, do our best to track it with numbers, but numbers are always imperfect in that respect.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, it's also very, weird as well. For some seasonal products, it's for example, Stanley, the cup, the long cup that women love so much. It
Hmm.
went out of fashion, I think, 5 or 6 years ago, like, or 7 years ago, and then this one instance happened, and now everybody is back with it. I think you see it everywhere. I don't think there is a female that doesn't have it. So to be
Yeah,
very
yeah, products do go in and out. I can't remember. I read somewhere it was a 2 or 3 year cycle of most products in terms of needing to update it. And we're in this constant evolution around improving products and this constant need to update and improve. Um, some sellers are in this fortunate position that they've got very simplistic products, a towel or a sheet. It's very difficult sometimes to improve that. Maybe there are trends in terms of colors and patterns and stuff. Technical products, I sometimes feel sorry for those that sell electronics and things like
yeah,
that. They're constantly having to
yeah,
get the latest product. But that's the same regardless of whether you sell on Amazon or whether you sell elsewhere. It's just this constant need to improve and meet the customer's demand, because customers obviously want to have the latest and greatest.
yeah.
So
Also,
yeah,
I think in 2017 or 2018, you would have asked me, I would have said that, make your product as digital as possible. That's what I would have said. But now in 2025, I think we miss the old. Like, I would rather have a product that's not technologically advanced. I don't know if it makes sense or not, because yeah, I think everything is just too automated and too much like that. So in day-to-day products, I would rather have a manual thing rather than the really digital thing. That's what I
yeah.
think.
I used to have the iWatch things, the Apple Watch, sorry.
Yeah,
It's all digital, and in the end, I just got so fed up of it and went back to a normal analog watch.
yeah,
And you find that yes, sometimes it is a bit too much. And I think the future, as we stare down the barrel of all of this AI stuff and the way it's potentially going to take a lot of jobs, I think the premium services going forward will be people, and you can
yeah,
get this basic level of service from AI, whether it's call centers or whether it's chatbots answering queries on websites or whether it's the basic level of service. But then the premium stuff will be the people. It will be people will crave this interactivity and real people. And I think if you are if you're in this industry, particularly industries like advertising management on Amazon, for example, I think that's going to go AI in the lower levels, but us, hopefully, at the top levels, will still have that ability to serve clients on a personal level, where
yeah,
we can say, this is how we think the customers are now shopping with you, and this is what you need to do to improve your business, to sell more, to make more profit, etc., based on the numbers that say AI are giving us. And that's kind of a sort of the way we're going, or I'm going, which
yeah,
is using AI to crunch the numbers, which is far better and quicker than me at analyzing 50 spreadsheets full of a
yeah.
thousand rows than I would be.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. And talking about profitability and data integration, I had another podcast where I was talking to this guy, and he was like, he actually helped me understand that there are basically levels to, AI. For example, one is a simple wrapper for ChatGPT, and then there is a SaaS product attached to it and stuff like that. But in the end, the really personalized AI would win whenever you are working on it. Whenever for example, if you are talking about accountability or accounting, then the SaaS, then the chat GPT that has AI that has proprietary software behind, and also really expert data code behind it that actually understands the accounting the way it should work. And then that would be the future of AI. And that's, I think, that makes a lot of sense, because if you have really good data analytical skills, you can translate it into code, and then get a lot better results than just general simple AI. It's just like having a simple cook and then having some guy make a food for you, rather than a professional cook make things for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a lot of truth in that, is that, I would love to build, as we've spoken about on this podcast before, I've got this sort of dashboard system, and it was just really built to help me understand when I was working with a client. It was never intended more than just a bunch of dashboards that say, here's what the business means. But I would love to sort of implement that into some form of modern SaaS. Now, we call it SaaS, but in reality, it's an AI-driven data analytics tool where whether it gets the data in some automated format, and then it uses AI to take all of that data and make sense of it, and then say, right, well, this is what you need to do. You need to, change your product title, or you need to improve your images, or you need to improve your price, or whatever lever you need to pull. That's what AI is really, really good at. And that it's very good at crunching large amounts of data, finding synergies between that data, and spitting out one or two key insights that you can then use. And that's how I would love my tools, if I'm ever going to do it, to be able to take those dashboards and actually make, and because I'm always talking about data and information, and what I always try and do is get data for sellers and create information. And I act as a sort of like a little translator in between. This is what these 1,000 rows are doing data, and this is what it means in 5 rows. And that's what AI is probably far, far better than me at doing. And yes, and I think, that will be perhaps the future of these type of products, or AI agents or whatever, going around gathering the data and helping sellers to understand what it all means. But then if everyone's doing it, we're all on the same level playing field, aren't we? We've all just moved up a level. It's a similar argument we were talking earlier about Black Friday. I've always been a little bit skeptical about how much impact promotional days like Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday have on ranking, because everyone's sales lift and everyone discounts. So if you don't put as much in your bank account that you did before because you're discounting, have you actually gained as a result of that promotion? Have you gained ranking if everyone is doing it and everyone's ranking? If you don't do it, maybe you lose ranking because you're not participating. But I haven't really got an answer yet as to whether participating in those promotions is a good or a bad thing. And I think it depends on what products you sell. But
that's a very old debate as well on the Amazon, that in the Amazon community, that should you participate in them or not. I think at the same time it's very different as well, because when you have a product, Amazon looks at it, or Amazon ranks it very differently across all the keywords that you have. So Amazon has a very different approach to it, and also you have products with a very different. Your competitor product might be selling more units than you, but on very different keywords than you at the same time. And you might have you might be selling less stuff, but you might be ranked on all the keywords. I have seen this a lot and a lot more, that we are ranking number 1 on major keywords, but they are ranking on very different keywords and still making a lot of sales. and those keywords are in a very different category that are just that are very hard to implement on and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what and my observation is that you do get a lift, but only according to your sales and your data. And but it will be interesting to see, just track 2 or 3 competitors and see how they were doing before, and then seeing how they are doing after. But yeah, we usually do that
Yeah,
with our major competitors, but it would be interesting to see the whole brand, how that particular brand as a whole does everything.
yes, I agree. I mean, we try and I always try, and one of my pillars that I always try and build for sellers is what I call market share. So I always try and say, well, this is the market and the competitors you're selling in, because we make the mistake of thinking in keyword silos, and customers don't think like that. Customers do
Yeah,
not think in keywords. Customers think in just in terms of products. And we've had this conversation before about the way customers shop, in the fact that they don't shop for products, they shop for solutions to problems. And that's actually being more emphasized now with the way Rufus, we don't shop for keywords necessarily on Rufus. We're asking it questions in the same way as a customer thinks. If I've got
mm,
a dirty, smelly dog, that's my problem.
yeah,
The solution to that problem is a product, dog shampoo.
yeah,
Or if I've been invited to a very special event, a wedding or something, my problem is I don't have anything to wear. So my
yeah,
solution is to buy some clothes on Amazon. So, and then with AI, people are typing into Rufus, I have a dirty, smelly dog. What's the best shampoo for that? And then you can then subsequently ask the AI, is it okay for dogs with itchy skin, or is it good for these type of dogs, or etc., or is it, environmentally friendly? And that's the way we're interacting. And I think we as sellers and marketeers have to start thinking less in terms of just pure keywords, which are still very relevant and very
yeah,
important, but we've got to start moving away towards um, thinking in terms of the way people think about buying products.
yeah,
Because whenever I see a product on Amazon, I'm constantly thinking about reviews and ratings and keywords and things like that, but that's not how the
yeah,
buyer thinks. and
yeah,
and I see it a lot in posts where people say, oh, you need to go to this tool and this particular product within the tool, and it will tell you what the best product opportunities are. And it's thinking about reviews and ratings and competition and all of these kind of hard metrics. And what they're not doing is taking a step back and saying, what is the problem this product is solving? If I choose a
yeah,
product, who would buy my product? What would they type in when they're looking for that product? Who
yeah,
else sells this product? And probably more importantly, is this product market in decline or growth? Take a step back and look at it as a product, as a buyer would, rather than as a seller, because we get really stuck in this. Oh, this is a good product because it's got, all of the competitors have got 10 reviews, rather than this category over here where all the competitors have got 1,000 reviews and blah blah blah, and all this kind of real data.
yeah,
He says, as a data specialist, you've got to take
yeah,
a step back as a product, and say, is this product something that I can sell, that solves a problem that I can articulate to my customers in my title, in my bullets, in my listing, in my A+ content, wherever, that the future seller, which will probably be via some form of AI or whatever, will be able to find. And it's quite a challenge. And one of the biggest things I do when I talk to sellers is trying to make them understand what's their market. because most sellers you speak to say, what's the market for your, what's your market share? What's the market for your product, your widget? And most sellers can't tell you.
Yeah.
Well, I sell 100 units a month, and it's this, and I think my keywords are that, but they don't actually understand the market.
Yeah.
And what's their market share? What do other competitors who sell like them look like? And how many do they sell? And how do they get their sales? And if you understand that, and I think we may have mentioned this on the previous podcast, which is, if you monitor market share and your sales, which we all love as an industry to keep focusing on sales, don't we? And we say, my sales have gone up 10% last month. Aren't I doing brilliant, Mr. Agency? Aren't I doing great for my clients?
Yeah.
Well, actually, the market went up 20%.
Yeah.
So you've actually lost 10% market share. Or in reverse, the market went up 5% and I've gone up that 10%. Yes, I am doing a good job because I've beaten the market. And so again, coming back to this kind of need to understand the foundations, what marketplace am I playing in? How big is that market? And am I tracking roughly, approximately, the moves in that market up and down? So that I know how I'm tracking, not every day, not even every week, every month or every few months. Am I keeping track with the way the market is moving? Because if I'm losing market share and the market's going up 1 or 2% a month and I'm not increasing, then it's an early sign that something isn't quite right with the product. Lacking features, it's too expensive, it's got some bad reviews, all of the stuff we like to talk about. And that's why I get very obsessed about tracking those numbers, because to me, numbers tell a story. They tell me what's going on that you can then articulate in words to a seller to say, what I see is A, and that means B. And you've got to do C to fix it. And that's where I think sometimes sellers who just celebrate, I'm increasing my sales every month, therefore I'm doing a good job. Well, you might be, that's true, but your competitors may be increasing faster. And therefore you may be gradually declining, and by the time you realize, it may be too late to recover. And that's why we as business Amazon business people need to track even the mere basics of what's going on.
What's going on around the market, and how the market is responding, and how we are responding to that market response. That makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, the market turns very different for each, reacts very differently to each of the seller. So it's sometimes very hard to particularize it, but at the same time, it's a good metric to have. And speaking about metrics, Mark, how do you, like, one is A/B testing that makes you allows you to figure out which part of product, which part of your Amazon listing needs to be worked on, or which part of your Amazon listing can be made better. But is there anything else that can help you? Because what I'm trying to understand, or what one of the things I suffer from, or I struggle with, is that I think a particular image looks good on Amazon, like looks good for my client, but at the same time, I'm not so sure if that's the direction I want to go in, because there are so many different ways to do an image, or there are so many different ways to do content, or if there are so many different ways to do a lot of things. So how do you make sure that you are doing the right thing there?
Oh, that's a difficult one, isn't it? I suppose, again, bringing it back to metrics, which I seem to always do, obviously things like click-through rates and conversion rates are the obvious go-to metric for this. The job as a the job of a listing, whether it's organic or advertising, which effectively is the same thing if it's a sponsored ad. Although they've just released video for sponsored ad, I noticed. But yeah, in most cases, the job of that first image is to get the click. That's its job. So you then look at, well, click-through rate. So if I put a different image or a different title or a different price, because the customer can only see the price, the ratings, the reviews, the first image and the title. So yes, the obvious metric there is click-through rate. Is my click-through rate increasing when I change something? And obviously just change one thing at a time and track it. And then the job of the listing is to convert that browser into a buyer. And then you start looking at conversion rates. You've got to look at it in two segments, click to listing, click to purchase. And there's two different ways of looking at that. And if you split it up into what the customer can see, it's not quite that simple and elegant, because of course that customer may have looked at your listing before and got an idea of your brand or seen other adverts. I get that. But trying to bring it down to basics, it is a look. And that's where we sort of, as people trying to track, or me trying to track the effect of things like advertising, that's when it gets really, really messy. Because we had this conversation before, where path to purchase, which is, I'm looking a lot at that on AMC at the moment, and halo sales and things like that, it's rarely add, click, buy. That rarely happens. Advert goes up, click, put in basket, purchase. Doesn't happen as often as you think. And so you've got to, and this is where things like search query performance falls down, because it only manages those clean sales. And that's where we have to start looking at things like ad overlaps and path to purchase and stuff like that. And I don't want to get too technical, but you have to start looking at how you attribute what you spend at the front end on an ad and what pops out the other end in terms of a sale, which may be of a different product. And that's where it starts getting quite complicated, because I started really simply years ago with just the simple advertised product report and the purchase product report, and I realized actually they clicked on product A but they bought product B. Hang on. and then you go on from the next stage into things like ANC, which we spoke about briefly last time, and where you've got all of these overlaps and what ads are more effective than others in terms of driving conversions. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but yeah, it's very messy.
Can I show you something? It's so yeah, it's let me just do the entire screen. So yeah, I hope you can see my screen. It's
I can, yes. So it's a conversion
path. Yeah, it's basically available from the Amazon DSP. And what you said, it's true that a person comes in, looks at sponsor product, then goes to display sponsor brands, and then display from Amazon DSP, and then purchases. And there are very few times where they did sponsor brands and then made a purchase. And but usually it's if you try to look for a linear path, it's very rare. But at the same time, if you look at the most is when they saw a sponsor product, then saw a sponsored DSP, and then made a purchase. So yeah, it's actually pretty interesting.
It does get quite complicated when you have multiple touch points. And you've got to be careful a little bit with sponsored display, which is something I'm looking at the moment, because of the VCPM way it's modeled. You've got to be careful that you don't over attribute sponsored display. Sponsored
Yeah.
display can look a lot better than it really is, and you've got
Yeah.
to factor that in. But what you're saying is absolutely true. You've got two reports that on AMC, and I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what they're called. One's called Path to Purchase, and one's called Ad Overlap, I think, if I'm correct. So one is about what order that they click in. So do they click sponsored display, video, and then purchase,
Yeah.
or do they that's the path to purchase, and then you've got the ad overlap. What ads in any order do they see? So the best is always sponsored display and sponsored product, for example, happens to be.
Yeah.
So as I say, it's you can get over analytic.
Yeah.
And you can get sort of analysis paralysis and all of that kind of stuff, and you can get too into it. But I think the conclusions that we're coming to is that, as I was saying earlier, that click, basket, purchase doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
And people are messy, and they come back and they look at things like I do. And you know, and you look at this product and you compare it with that product, and then you look at that and you click on this ad, and eventually you do purchase what you originally looked at in terms of a product, but maybe not the exact product that you were originally thinking about. And our job is getting harder, and that's where I think AI has an advantage, in that you could throw that spreadsheet into a chat GPT and you could say, tell me what it all means.
Yeah.
And you'd get something sensible out of it.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is quite difficult to keep on top of, and it's just getting harder. We're not sure how, at the moment, how Rufus and how external AI, if it is going to Amazon or other marketplaces, how they're attributing into all of this. And so it's becoming harder for us to say A equals B in terms of advertising. In terms of and that's where I think people who just keep constantly talking about ACOS and TACOS and analyzing things at the campaign level are not necessarily doing it right, because we now know that campaign A and campaign B are affecting campaign C and D down here. And if we look at them in isolation and we just focus on, well, it's got 8 clicks and this, so therefore we need to put the bid down because the ACOS is too high, which is what a lot of what you see. That methodology is rapidly becoming out of date, and you've got to look at the whole ecosystem as to how your customers interact with your brand, and trying to pop up in as many places as possible so that they can see you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and Mark, again, we are out of time.
Oh, we're out of time again. Sorry, I think I talked too much.
No, it's just I love this discussion. So yeah, still feels like we should be talking a lot more. But yeah,
I'm always happy to chat.
Yeah. So yeah, my final the final question would be, what, like, how do you make your brand rock solid for coming years? Because for a seller, that's the most important thing, no?
Yes, I mean, I think, I'm probably going to be a bit cheeky here in my answer and say, either be aware of the trends that are affecting Amazon sellers, or work with someone who is abreast. And we were talking earlier, and I probably listen to 20 or 30 podcasts a week while I'm walking the dogs or driving. And the purpose of that is not only because I like listening to this, but I'm also trying to be abreast of what is affecting the industry and what changes are making. So in terms of, to answer your question, just be aware of what trends there are. not just AI and any of that stuff, but just generally, what are the moves that are affecting
Yeah.
it? Not just, oh, the fees have gone up, because you see that too much. I'm talking about the general trends in the way people are shopping, how they are getting their purchases, and the way that a customer sat at a desk or on the bus or whatever is purchasing a product is the way you as a seller need to start worrying about, because that is changing quite rapidly.
Yeah.
We talked about it earlier, the move away from keyword towards problem driven.
Yeah.
All that's happened is, instead of, the customer thinks of the problem in their head and they translate it to keywords, all that's happened is that they've taken it straight from the head and typed it into the into the AI Rufus. And that's how I think is, being a bit cheeky, is work with someone who understands what's going on and can help you to be ahead of the game in trends, to understand when things are going wrong, that you can see it before it's too late to fix it.
Yeah, makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mark. Again, it was really
I love talking to you about all these things. Thank you ever so much for your patience and listening to me.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you.